I can ask you to move the motion. And you have 20 minutes.
Sharing with a number of colleagues. Minister, I'd like to start by commending the firefighters and ambulance paramedics of Dublin Fire Brigade. They have a long and proud tradition of keeping our communities safe, especially during the pandemic when most people were being told to stay home and stay safe. It was frontline workers like Dublin Fire Brigade who donned their gear, left their families and went to work. I'll start by outlining what is needed and what the Government and the Dublin Fire Brigade management need to do to support our firefighters and ambulance staff. We need to initiate 2 back-to-back recruitment training classes to be scheduled immediately to exhaust the current training panel, so to alleviate the situation in a timely manner. That a new panel be immediately established to allow for further recruitment classes to be trained, to support every effort to be made by both sides to reach an agreement on overall DFB operational manning levels and other outstanding issues currently being negotiated. We need to ensure that all firefighters and officers are fully trained in managing high-rise fire and medical emergencies, and calls for a full training programme to be scheduled to ensure full competencies across all watches and stations, including retained stations. To fully implement the recommendations of the Fire Safety Task Force Group report published by the Department of Housing, Local and Government and Heritage in July 2018, and to recognise the propensity of staff to suffer from burnout if repeatedly working overtime to cover staff shortages, the provision of information to staff regarding the telltale signs of burnout, and the provision of support for staff who may be suffering from burnout. I'll return later to the issue of resources and a strategic plan for the future growth of Dublin Fire Brigade in the ever-growing Dublin in both terms of population and business. Minister, at the start of this pandemic, our firefighters and paramedics in the Dublin Fire Brigade did not know what was ahead of them. But that didn't matter, as they had a job to do, and that was saving lives, supporting our communities and keeping our communities safe. Over the past number of weeks, I've met with trade union representatives, firefighters, the Chief Fire Officer and staff in Dublin City Council. The firefighters talked about how they are demoralised. They were working 2 long hours covering shifts. They are fearful for their own and other safety, and if the situation of staff shortages continue. And Minister, here are the hard numbers. So, all agree that the current number of firefighters is 965. However, there's currently 35 vacancies. There are 35 on bereavement leave, and there are another 30 on special projects. All accept that these are important projects. However, it does add to the problem of staff shortages. I acknowledge that there are 35 new recruits to come in December or January, with a new class of 45 to start in February. However, these 45 recruits will not be added to the rosters until at least the end of 2022, as it takes a minimum of 10 months to train a firefighter. Today, I was informed by a firefighter that the Dublin Fire Brigade factor in about 30 to 35 retirements each year. And as one firefighter said to me just yesterday at a meeting, it's like filling a bucket, but the holes are getting bigger and bigger each year. What's happening at the moment is not enough to cover people even who are leaving through retirement. It's clear that what is currently being done to relieve the pressure on the workers is not going to solve the problem in the next couple of years, and the staff are at risk of burnout and their health and safety, along with our citizens' health and safety. And you must see this as an urgent matter for the Government. As I said, I'll return later to the issue of resources and the expansion of Dublin City and County and the strategic plan for Dublin Fire Brigade as Dublin grows out. But as you can see, Minister, from the statistics that we have been given by the trade unions and also by the Chief Fire Officer, who admitted that it's not sufficient for the current numbers, let alone the growth of Dublin, but I'll come to that later. Go on,
Sorry, Deputy Donnelly, that was accidentally. You do have a further moment.
Okay. No, it's fine. Let colleague
in. 80 years ago, in May of 1941, Dublin Fire Brigade crews were hailed as heroes across the nation for their quick response and for rushing headlong to Belfast to help their colleagues there and the citizens tackle the fires and the destruction from a night-long Luftwaffe bombardment of the city. That is just one moment which their successors, today's firefighters, look back on with pride. But there's so much more for them and for us to be proud of Dublin Fire Brigade. In fact, Like all other frontline services, they didn't have to be asked twice to step up when this pandemic hit our shores. As the emergency ambulance service for the Greater Dublin area, the men and women of Dublin Fire Brigade have been run off their feet trying to cope with the COVID calls on top of their ordinary or extraordinary work, day in, day out. Despite being often hamstrung by huge staff shortages, they have got the job done, but they are at breaking point. They are, in my view, emulating the firefighting heroes of the past, day in, day out. And the least that we can do is to ensure that they have a full complement of staff to carry out their duties, the equipment to do their jobs, nothing more and nothing less. In fact, Dublin Fire Brigade do not have to pull to deal with the large staff shortages, which is beginning to cripple their service. It needs to do a lot more to deliver for Dublin in terms of fire, rescue and ambulance services. As the city expands and grows upwards, it needs more EMTs, first responders, delivering Dublin's fire, rescue and ambulance service, saving lives and tackling emergencies, day in, day out. Séan bailach is fearr le tacaíocht de thuairt de Brigade Dóiteáin á Clia atá mail tep, ná na Barney fórna a líon a lárach agus an trealamh agus an gléasra atá de dhéthortha a láthair. Gan sin bei tuile ócáidí nuair nach bhfuil umláin clúdach seirbhísí luchtáireachtainn ar an cathair. Go trúbhéalach is nuair a thárlás ultimpais nó éigeandáil mór a hiicfar i gceart tora an gantain is fórna atá ar an seirbhís éigeandála seo. Tá an cathair ag brath ar fér agus maná atá tréachta ag déanamh rag obair de hir gan éon faoiseamh le feiscint agus le trealamh atá sean nó i gairí sean. Tá gála gníomh láireach uaite ara ón chóra carachá i Clia agus ón HSE. Gníomh práineach suladárla an uafás atá á thuair gomsa.
Deputy O'Reilly.
This day, 22 years ago, my grandmother died, unfortunately, and we all miss her. We miss her greatly. However, when she was sick, she was taken to hospital in a DFB ambulance. That's the experience of my family, the care that we got, the compassion with which we were treated, the speed, the efficiency, the just all-round decency of the men and women that turned up. That's the experience of thousands of Dubliners. And you know this, Minister, and you're proud of the DFB yourself, as I am. It's a really, really important service, not just for who they are and what they do, but what they represent to the people of Dublin. They are a very highly trained service. They are trained paramedics. They are also trained firefighters. You know this too, Minister. What they're not is well-resourced. They are very enthusiastic, they're very willing, they put themselves in danger, they are very capable, they are highly trained and we are all very proud of them, but we don't have enough firefighters for the city and the county. You and I represent a constituency that has a population that is growing rapidly. That's very, very welcome. It's great to see so many young people right across North County Dublin, but we need a fire service that's not just going to be fit for today, but future-proofed, to take account not just of the growing population, which, as I've said, is very welcome, but also the growing housing developments. And the housing developments are going up in many cases rather than out, and that requires specialised equipment. So what we need, Minister, is a fire service to service the capital city and county that is not just fit for purpose, but also future-proofed. And the purpose of this motion is to show our support and show the support of the Oireachtas for the men and women of the Dublin Fire Brigade, and to say to them that we acknowledge there is a reason why they balloted for industrial action. That wasn't for nothing. These are people that take their job extremely seriously. I know, I worked as a union official for long enough. I worked with Dublin Fire Brigade on many occasions. They don't want to be about the business of talking to politicians or even talking to union officials. They want to get on with doing the work that they are very highly trained and very competent and when capable of doing. But when they have to ballot for industrial action, when they have to step out of their comfort zone and get out of the area of the work that they do and into industrial relations and health and safety legislation, that should be setting off alarm bells in your office, Minister, but right across the city and the county. And we have an opportunity this evening to speak with one voice as an Oireachtas and to say to the men and women of the DFB that we hear their concerns, we understand them, and that the resources that they need are going to be provided.
Deputy O'Brien.
Thank you very much, Chair. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate my colleague, Deputy Paul Donnelly, for bringing forward this very important motion for us this evening. And like others, and I think like probably all deputies who speak in the debate this evening, I'd like to pay enormous tribute to the men and women of the Dublin Fire Brigade, our firefighters, our ambulance staff and our paramedics. And I don't think there will be a member of this chamber who, either directly from family experience or as a constituency politician, hasn't had interaction with the fire service at the very front line of their work. This is not a normal job. This is not a job that's 9 to 5 and that you can go home at the end of. It is a vocation. And the men and women of the Dublin Fire Brigade bring to that job an enormous level of commitment. And I think that's shown very clearly in the fact that day in, day out, they put their own lives at risk. That's not only a tribute to them, but also to their families and to their wider communities. It does seem to me, when I look at successive governments, often it is those public servants at the very coalface of some of the most difficult jobs that are the resourced the poorest. Sometimes it's carers, sometimes it's nurses, sometimes it's our defence forces. And I think the very fact that the men and women of the Dublin Fire Brigade have felt the need to ballot for industrial action is itself a failure. Now, I think everybody here knows what is required. Everybody here knows what we need to do. And I think what would be really powerful coming out of this evening's debate is if we do have unanimity in the chamber, if there is an acceptance, there are issues here in terms of resourcing, in terms of staffing, in terms of training and support that absolutely need to be resolved, and that with collective political will and with clear intent and signalling from government, we can ensure that those issues are resolved and resolved in the best interests of the men and women of the Dublin Fire Brigade and of the men, women and children of the city in Dublin. Like the Minister and like Deputy O'Reilly, I too represent a constituency that's growing very rapidly. Adamstown, the Minister visited recently in significant new residential development. Clonburris will start soon. And therefore, not only do we need to meet the current staff complement that is there as a shortfall, we need to go further than that. So I genuinely look forward to the Minister's response, and I do hope we can speak with one voice tonight and do the right thing by the men and women of the Dublin Fire Brigade.
Deputy Sean Crowe.
I suppose maybe we need to remind ourselves that Dublin Fire Brigade responds to fires, car crashes, accidents, storms like tonight, emergencies, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, running 12 full-time stations, including the one on the Belgard Road in Tala. And this work is done even though there are almost 100 firefighters short of what is required to adequately and safely staff our fire stations. It's almost a daily occurrence for vehicles to be unavailable for deployment because there just aren't enough firefighters to staff them. Staff are constantly battled with exhaustion, we're told, from repeatedly being asked to work overtime and to cover staff shortages. Simply put, our fire brigade service is at a crisis point. And this is not a new issue. Dublin Fire Brigade have been highlighting the severe understaffing for years, and it's only worsened in the face of inaction from senior management. Tala is also the centre for response to major incidents in Dublin, Kildare and Wicklow. And my fear is that we haven't got the personnel or the necessary equipment to respond to such an emergency. You might address that, Minister, if you get an opportunity later on. The lack of planning is evidence elsewhere in that there are only 36 trainees to graduate this January and not nearly enough to fill the openings that are obviously in the force. And more firefighters will retire next year. So unfortunately, if that continues, more gaps will open up and responders will be spread even more thinly. The joint Dublin Fire and Ambulance medical response model that currently operates and delivers fully trained medical responders is also under threat, I'm told, and needs to be supported, not changed. The failure by government to ensure that Dublin Fire Brigade has the personnel and equipment it needs is also leaving the public vulnerable. It is essential that Dublin City CEO Owen Keegan and the Ministers responsible, yourself Minister and Minister Stephen Donnelly, meet directly with the firefighters, the unions, in order to address these funding and staffing issues. Staff shortages directly affect the emergency response times of Dublin Fire Brigade and must be immediately addressed, because any understaffing or delayed response times puts the public at serious risk. So in my own area of Tala, we saw a larger fire in an apartment block there recently. That incident showed the skills and ability of the ambulance and fire brigade service, but it also served as a warning on resourcing and staffing of our fire services. On that evening, there were 8 fire brigade units on the scene during the height of the response. The majority of Dublin's fire brigade strength were involved. So again, if the extremely unfortunate situation was to occur, and a second major incident was to occur simultaneously, this would stretch the DFB's response capability to the brink. And we know that the major ladder that had to come out from town, again, the worry about the delay in that. A major incident on the M50, a similar fire somewhere on the north side, we'll be putting the fire crews in an impossible position of having to divide resources with lives in balance. So in a city of well over 1 million inhabitants, we need a fire service that has the capability to respond to more than one major incident at a time. The current situation, where appliances are leaving stations on calls with less than a full complement of firefighters, is putting the crews and the public at risk.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Chris Sanders.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to start off by thanking my colleague Paul Donnelly for introducing this very important bill. It's a really important bill into the Dáil, and I'd like to commend the men and women of Dublin Fire Brigade for their commitment and bravery in carrying out their work. When you look out the window today and you pop your head out, most people are inside, but the fire brigade are the people we're going to call when there's any trouble or concern for us or our families. I'd particularly like to thank the members of the Dublin Fire Brigade stations in Donnybrook and Tara Street, who are in Dublin Bay South. Not only are they an emergency service and a fire brigade station, but they are an integral part of the community. They're very involved in any community events being held and are regularly engaging in fundraising for a range of charities. Dublin Fire Brigade provides immediate medical assistance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have had such a profound impact on countless lives across the city and beyond. In many cases, these firefighters put their own lives at risk while carrying out this invaluable work. It cannot be said enough how indebted we in this city are to the men and women of Dublin Fire Brigade. But words and support and praise are not merely enough. A round of applause won't help anyone. The Dublin Fire Brigade are in need of urgent support, and that is what this Deputy Donnelly's motion intends to deliver. And we are hearing near constant reports of increased pressure due to staffing shortages. Huge concern over lack of equipment and resources. They've saved countless lives in this city, and in times of crisis elsewhere in this country, they've gone wherever they are needed. Our first responders should never be put under this kind of pressure. The men and women of Dublin Fire Brigade are the backbone of emergency response in Dublin. They should never have to ballot for industrial action over staff shortages and concerns that the safety of firefighters and members of the public has been compromised. We frequently get reports of fire engines being off the road due to staffing shortages. Over last Halloween, one of the busiest periods of the year for Dublin Fire Brigade, there was 5 staff engines off the road as a result of these shortages. We need to see back-to-back recruit classes to be scheduled immediately and supports put in place to put this lack of emergency cover to an end. We need to be providing the Dublin Fire Brigade with the equipment and resources needed to carry out their job to their fullest ability. Dublin's Fire Brigade service is Dublin's first line of defence, and it's also Dublin's last line of defence, and they need to be better resourced. I call on all parties to support this motion and give Dublin Fire Brigade the support they deserve.
And firstly, I want to commend my colleague, Deputy Donnelly, for bringing forward this motion this evening, and it's a privilege to speak on it. Minister, you mentioned a number of fire stations there in your remarks. I think it was Ballybay, Ennis and Swords. I'd like to take the opportunity to remind you that the country is not a donut. There is a centre. I do believe it's commonly referred to as the Midlands, and we also have fire stations. Long before the media brought us visual impacts of tragedies on our screens, it was understood that firefighters were a cut above. And I'm struck by a memory of when I was very small in school and visiting a fire station, and being told the most important thing that you could do was to get out and to stay out. But the people that we're speaking here about this evening actually run into burning buildings, and their job is to protect us and to rescue us, and we rely on them when we are at our most vulnerable. Now, Dublin firefighters have given notice of their intention to ballot for industrial action over staff shortages because their safety and that of their colleagues, not to mention the public on whom they serve, has been compromised by a failure to deal with issues and concerns raised. The service is currently operating below agreed safe staffing levels, and there is an over-reliance on overtime to reach daily staffing levels. Now, I know from speaking regularly with the fire service in my own constituency of Longford Westmeath that Dublin Fire Brigade are not alone. Panels cannot be filled, let alone posts. People are leaving. Some are actually leaving the country. And these retained firefighters talk not only of the stressful nature of the job that they do, which they signed up to, which they love and which they want to do, but the negative impact that has on their families, on their children, their partners, their spouses, their inabilities to take holidays or to give a commitment to just simply be there as part of a family because of that same over-reliance on overtime. But they do it, and they do it willingly to support each other because that's the nature of the job. Now, firefighters and communities, they deserve much better than massaging of figures and statistics. And what I hear from firefighters is that they don't feel supported. They feel that their roles are not being valued, and that over time the service and them are purposely being downgraded because there is an increase in reliance on voluntary responders and a lack of appropriate training. They simply don't feel like they're being listened to or that their concerns are being addressed. The fact that many employed in our fire services are not given the tools, the support and the proper working conditions required to perform their duties is farcical. Now, Dublin firefighters are considering strike action to improve the safety of the service, and others may well follow suit. Minister, our firefighters across the country, retained and full-time, are willing to do this vital work. Are you willing to properly resource them to do so?
Deputy Patricia Ryan.
I also would like to thank Deputy Donnelly for bringing forward this motion. Dublin Fire Brigade provides an invaluable full-time fire rescue and ambulance service for the Greater Dublin area. Indeed, it is a model that should be replicated throughout the country. It is clear that while the retained model that is prevalent in rural Ireland is doing its best, thanks to part-time retained firefighters, the system is not suitable for the 21st century. We need an all-Ireland national fire service that is free from the budget constraints of local authorities, where it competes with roads and playgrounds for a meagre resources of a county council's income. Economies of scale and the sharing of expertise will help to modernise our fire service. If the issue of recruitment and retention is not addressed, firefighters or members of the public may be seriously injured or even die. This simply cannot be allowed to occur. Firefighters put their lives on the line every time they answer a call. And in 2007, firefighters Brian Murray and Mark O'Shaughnessy from Bray and Michael Liston from Fines, County Limerick, gave their lives in the line of duty. I'd like to remember them and all those who have served in our fire service who are no longer with us. The Government must provide funding to employ additional fire service staff by offering positions to all those currently on the recruitment panel for the Greater Dublin area, and a plan for further expansion in the years ahead. It must make it easier for firefighters to transfer between local authorities without loss of pay grade and pension entitlements. And you heard Minister Deputy Crowe spoke about Kildare. I know several firefighters that live in Kildare that commute outside the county to full-time positions, some over 100 miles each way. They would gladly work in Dublin, except for the lack of an ability to transfer, as well as the loss of pay and entitlements. They should be successful at interview as a raw recruit. I'd imagine there are a lot more that live much closer to Dublin, and I feel urgent action is needed before the situation gets any worse.
Thank you, Deputy Des Ellis.
I would like to welcome this motion on Dublin Fire Brigade services, and I would also like to commend my colleague Paul Donnelly for bringing it forward. My constituency of Dublin North West has a large and growing population and is served by Finglas Fire Station, which is known as number 5 station within the Dublin Fire Brigade. I cannot but give the highest of praise to all those who serve in Finglas and in the fire services in Dublin. I would like to take the opportunity now to thank them for their courage and dedication serving the community across Dublin North West and across the city. These men and women of the fire service place themselves in danger every day to keep us safe and to safeguard our properties. So the very least we can do is make sure that they have all the resources that they require to do their job and keep them safe. However, members of the fire service have increasingly raised over the last number of months their concerns over staff shortages, particularly during the run-up to Halloween, which is traditionally one of the fire service's busiest times of the year. It is clear that the fire service is understaffed, and union representatives for the fire service have said that a recruitment drive is urgently needed to offset these critical shortages in staffing. A number of months ago, a spokesman for the Fire Service Union, SIP2, spoke of his understanding that as many as up to 4 fire trucks were not in service due to a shortage in the staff numbers needed to operate them. This disturbing situation puts lives and property at risk, and measures should be put in place to ensure that this never happens again. Therefore, the very least that can be done immediately is that there should be an increase in the minimum number of firefighters. There should also be a recruitment drive, and one that will take into account the number of vacancies left by retirement from the service. A great number of members of the service are retiring this year, and as many have had to delay their retirement due to COVID. While the fire service is under-resourced and understaffed, all our lives and the lives of the members of the staff of the service are put at risk. It is welcome that the government is not opposing this motion, but actions speak louder than words. Thank you.
Minister, I just want to thank my colleague Paul Donnelly. Myself and Paul often have a little bit of banter, the north side and the south side, Dublin banter, which you know yourself from being a Dub. And there's some things that we do unite us, and the likes of the Dublin GAA team, but also the likes of the value that we have for Dublin Fire Brigade. And I sat in a leaders' question this morning, and I heard the Taoiseach commend the frontline workers who will be called upon tonight and today in relation to Storm Barra. And one of the services that are going to be called first tonight, it will be the Fire Brigade and Dublin Fire Brigade. And I just want to thank them for their service that they've given us, and I also want to wish them well in their endeavours for all of us tonight. But Minister, we expect the Fire Brigade to come to our aid when things are difficult and sometimes in life-threatening situations to make things safer for us all. But at the moment, Dublin Fire Brigade staff do not get the same consideration in their workplace. In fact, SIP2 have written to the Chief Fire Officer calling for safe system of work to be provided to all its members. They've given a notice, which I wouldn't say was very likely. They gave the notice of intention to batter firefighters in 2 weeks' time for industrial action for a strike. In my own area in Dublin Midwest, the Adamstown Fire Station was promised nearly 20 years ago, and that still hasn't materialised, Minister. And as you mentioned, I listened to your opening speech, there is areas with high population growth that really need to be looked after. The likes of Adamstown and the Clonbrothers SDZ in my own area would be two of them. There has been serious concerns over staffing levels, which my other colleagues have mentioned. And there has been times when appliances and fire brigades were taken off the road. Like there was five fire trucks taken off the road at Halloween, which is the busiest time of the year for firefighters. Our fire service is performing a valuable service, saving lives and protecting our communities. And we know just how important the fire brigade is to our communities. Due to the government's failure to invest, the service is understaffed and workers feel exhausted and unsafe. But our communities deserve better. Our motion will support communities and Dublin Fire Brigade services by ensuring a fully resourced Dublin Fire Brigade. And I do welcome that you have said that you will be in support of this motion. And I also welcome the initial recruitment drive that you've said. I think that's something we're all on the same page here. We really all want a fully resourced Fire Brigade that's able to call out when needed and where they're needed. But Minister, as I've said already, actions speak louder than words, so let's hopefully the political will is behind that.
Minister, in 2005, firefighters in Bray staged a walkout of the fire station arising from concerns regarding the condition of the retained service in Wicklow. As a councillor at the time, I went and spoke to the guys. I was the only public representative to do so, Minister. The walkout was led by Sub-Officer Brian Murray. They outlined a litany of issues within the service which were impacting on their ability to do their job. Call vetting, recruitment and retention, underinvestment in the retained service, to name but a few. Brian told me at the time that someone would die unless the issues that they were highlighting were addressed. Minister, 2 years later, on the 26th of September 2007, Sub-Officer Brian Murray and firefighter Mark O'Shaughnessy lost their lives in the line of duty. They died protecting their community. They died because of the systematic failures within a service that isn't fit for purpose. Here we are, 14 years after Brian and Mark's deaths, and things in the retained service are as bad, if not worse. During a recent conference of the Chief Fire Officers, the retained fire service was described as not being fit for purpose. And Minister, I agree. There have been instances where fire services have been unable to respond to emergencies due to a shortage of firefighters, and in other instances, some fire stations have been forced to close. Firefighters are on call 24/7, 365 days of the year, and many simply can't take time off due to a shortage of personnel. In County Clare, for example, since 2016, 24 firefighters were recruited. 16 have already left the service, and this is being replicated right across the state within the retained service. Bray Fire Station, Minister, which serves a population of over 35,000 people, is supposed to be a 2-pump station. However, for the last 5 years at least, it has been reduced to a 1-pump station, with Greystones providing backup, and this has obvious knock-on implications for Greystones and the wider area. Necessity demands Bray be a full-time service. However, because the local authority is unable to fund it, it simply has not happened. So fire services are being delivered on the basis of a local authority budget as opposed to a risk assessment. And recently, the Management Board of the National Directorate for Fire and Emergency Management has approved a proposal for undertaking a review of the model of local authority retained service deliveries. And the Minister, Darragh O'Brien, has informed me that the objective of the review is to explore and understand the issues impacting on service delivery, to undertake research and analysis, and to propose options which will underpin the continuing provision of effective and inclusive local authority fire services into the future. And Minister, I believe the model used for the retained fire service is the root cause for many of the difficulties that are within the service as we speak. I've long advocated for the creation of a national fire authority in line with one of the key recommendations of the Farrell Grant Sparks report of 2002. And this should also, the review should also be included, and that should also be included within the review which has now been commenced and being rolled out by the department. As many would say, Minister, there are simply too many chiefs and not enough firefighters within the service. And Minister, there are many issues within the fire service, but the reality is failure to address the issue of recruitment and retention is literally a matter of life and death. And Minister, I don't want to see the death or injury of another firefighter or member of the public in Wicklow or anywhere else within the state due to the failure to address the serious issue within the service. But if the issue of staffing levels is not addressed, the government is endangering the welfare of firefighters and the public everywhere throughout the state. And the review must not become a whitewash either, Minister. It must look at all of the issues, including the structures within the retained service. And the Minister must also commit to publishing that report once complete and fully implement any findings to ensure that we have a retained service that is fit for purpose and fit for the 21st century.
I'll need to conclude the debate.
Can I thank my colleagues first of all and other TDs for the support for this motion, and I welcome the Minister's acceptance of the motion, and I do accept his passion, I suppose, that he expressed for Dublin Fire Brigade. But as fire officers continuously said to me, time and time again over the last number of weeks of meetings with them, is that they actually just want support now. They don't have very much confidence in anyone to deliver at the moment, and they want to see something happen for them. I just want to raise the issue around the 61 million in capital funding, and I believe that's for the entire state, it's for the entire fire services, including Dublin Fire Brigade and the retained fire services. My understanding is that the Chief Fire Officer said he needs 80 million for Dublin alone. And I think you can see the disparity between what is required for a modern fire service and what is being provided. I think those, when we're throwing around figures, I think we have to be clear and concise about exactly what impact that's going to have. As I said earlier, I'm going to return to a couple of issues that I didn't get to, and that is particularly around the growing population of Dublin City and Dublin County, the height and scale of buildings that others have raised. Well, the firefighters have told us on the call what engines they were in. To say I was dumbfounded is not an exaggeration. If the people of Dublin really knew the condition of the equipment, the age of the equipment that the firefighters were using, they would be genuinely shocked. According to what I've been told, it has been Dublin Fire Brigade of 21 engines. The fire officer, as has been confirmed here, has committed to 4 new engines, 2 before Christmas and 2 after. But some of the stock, or a lot of the stock that they have, are between 15, 16, 17 years old. They are 03, 04, 05 engines that have somewhere up to around 200 or plus thousand kilometres on their clock. So that is quite unbelievable that the most highly qualified professional service in the world is expected to carry out a role in such old trucks. And I know you happen to mention that a taxi man is not allowed driving a car that's older than 10 years, and yet we expect to provide engines to fire officers that are between 15 and 16 years old. I'm also informed as well that although there's 4 new engines, there are some equipment that's coming into the country that's already 5 to 6 years old. We're getting the cast-offs of some other fire services. How can the department justify not giving such a vital service the funding they require to carry out their job safely and effectively? And again, I heard the Minister talk about the amount of funding, the amount of staffing that's going on, etc. But if it's not sufficient to cover what is required, then it's not enough. Every organisation needs a strategic plan that's based on the needs of the service that they provide to the community. And it was clear that there is, at the moment, no such signed-off strategic plan as required under Section 26 of the 1981 Fire Services Act. And I'm concerned about the timelines in relation to the development of the fire service, especially in relation to the growth of Dublin Fire Brigade, because the Chief Fire Officer mentioned certain capital projects talking about 7, 8, 9, 10 years further on down the road, and I don't think that's sufficient for Dublin, because Dublin is growing as we speak, and it has been growing for the last 30 years. And I'll give you some examples. I live in Dublin West. We have a fire station in Coolmine just around the corner from my house. It's 1 fire engine, which consists of an officer, 7 staff. That includes 2 Dublin Fire Brigade ambulance paramedics as part of their team. That's for a population of over 110,000 people. In the next number of years, we're going to go to about 140,000. We'll have 50,000 people who are working in Ballycool and Turtlestown in the industrial units. Is that sufficient? Absolutely not. Do we need a fire station and another engine? Without a shadow of a doubt. Adamstown has already been mentioned. On the map since 2020, still no fire station. The most incredible one I got was North Strand. A porta-cabin was delivered for the extra staff that were brought in. It was told, in 2 years' time, you're going to have a new station. How many years ago was that? 13 years ago. 13 years ago they were told that temporary porta-cabin is going to be there for 2 years and you're going to have a new station. To me, when I'm listening to fire officers, what I hear from them is complete and utter frustration and a lack of trust in what is being said by both the government and the Chief Fire Officer and Dublin City Council. So, look, I think everybody has given a clear view of exactly what's required from the Dublin, from the government, from Dublin City Council, from the Chief Fire Officer, and I'm urging people. I'm urging the government and all of those with the power, the authority and the funding to listen to the workers. They're the people that we asked today to go out into the front line. Well, we're told to stay at home. We asked them to go out during the pandemic. Again, we're asked to stay at home. They're asked to go out and put their lives at risk. They don't want claps. They want to be respected. Now
that the debate is concluded, the question is that the motion be agreed to. Na tachti haven keshti abroishi ta. Na tachti na quina abroishi nail. Shelim gwilin kesht rita. Nish pogma the raigidi and cleared overall agus shin